today, and I would like to thank you to honor our invitation to be here. I know many of you have a lot of responsibilities, but you decided to keep this day for us. And also take this opportunity to thank you for all the work that you have been doing with us for the past 1 or so years. And this is part of a continuation of the work that we are going to do. And as we were told, this is today going to be part of the activity to randomize us or to put us by chance to different groups, as we shall learn as we go along, so that one of the groups will receive an intervention which will be described in detail, but the other group will continue with what we are doing and what we call the standard of care. However, at the end of it, depending on what works better, whether the standard of care is better or this is better, the other group will also receive what will be the best that is working. So we are sure, we are not sure. If we knew that this is better, then probably we should just give it to everybody. And that's why we are going into this process. But we get more details about that as we go along. But before maybe we go on, I will just quickly welcome also the program manager, whom you know is the acting assistant commissioner in charge of National TV program, Dr. Stavia. She's our so she has not yet come to all the districts. She's on the way, and so we are having this opportunity to be with her here and have her, so that when she comes, you already know who's our commissioner in charge of National TV and the support program. But before I will quickly go through, she will be giving us some opening remarks. We shall quickly introduce ourselves by names, your role, and which has facility you are coming from. And I will start by introducing myself. I'm Achiris Katanga. You have seen my name on some of those papers, and some of you have called me. I'm a lecturer in Makerere University College of Health Sciences. I'm one of the team members for this experimental study that we have been implementing, and we are going to. And then I will start here.
Good morning to you all. Good morning, sir. Bobby Kauzi Abel, the TV focal person, Nakandore Center for Kawan District. Good morning, everyone. I'm Utric Nelson,
Did you hear it?
No. I'm Utric Nelson, the in-charge of the municipal council.
Good morning. I'm Focus Stephen, Uganda Municipal Council, lab technician.
Yes, we can. Maybe some of you are not right.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. I was expressing my name as the typical person of Western District.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Chirumira Mutwalibi, typical person of Tirura Health Center for Mayege District.
Secretary Andrew Kato. Morning, everybody. I'm from Buama 3, TP focal person, PG District.
Morning, everyone. First I'm Patrick Chemanwa. I'm the in charge in Amangala Health Center 3 in Midanga District.
Good morning to you all. Kawesa Dennis, focal person, Expo, TP.
Morning, colleagues. I'm Manager, Kayunga Hospital.
Good morning, members. I'm Jackson Boye,
in charge of Sana, Kayunga District.
Good morning to you all. My name is Gloria Ida, and I'm the in charge of Randomization Center 3, Kayunga District.
Good morning to you all. I'm Bira Maureen.
Good morning to you all. My name is Namtamba Maria, and I was Center for TB for person.
Hello, I am Rebecca Crowder. I'm here with UCSF.
Good morning. My name is David Jagnoff, and I'm also coming from UCSF.
Good morning. My name is Tom Samuels. I'm here from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine.
UCSF is University of California based at
I'm Anton Amando, a driver to the Assistant Commissioner, National TB Leprosy Program.
if you want to reach
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dennis Oyuko. I work as a research assistant with the expert minister.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Mariam Natale. I work as a laboratory technologist for Expert TB program.
Good morning, my name is Kalema Nalugwa. I work with the Expel TB project.
Good morning, I'm Catherine Farr. I'm from University of California, San Francisco.
Morning, my name is Wiza Job from Malongwe Center 3, Maile District.
Morning, and nice to meet you. I'm Telanike Alpa, Maile Center 3, TB for person.
Morning, everybody. I'm Mogoya Dauda, District TB Record Supervisor, Uganda District.
Morning to you. I'm called Nasa Sise from Chinani Health Center 3, laboratory personnel, Rango District.
Good morning to you all. Kabeja Sal, in charge, Chinonere Center 3, Rango District.
Good morning to you all. I'm Sister Ernestina Kulu, Hospital Administrator, Lower District.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Tondo Alan, acting delegate of Delaware District.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Conrad Muliro. I'm a senior health work from the Royal District and the district TB supervisor. You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kagwe Charles, Regional TB Focal Person, Kampala Region.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kawes Hakim, IT College of Health Sciences.
Good morning, all. I'm called Olpo David from Nakasonga, a unit one from the American.
I'm called Dinaka Bomba Nyase from Nasongola District, Nampanga Health Center 3, and Nurse.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Aditya Kadamanchi, and I'm also from the University of California, San Francisco.
Thank you very much, and I think other than the people seated at the table here, beside the child, everyone has been introduced. And maybe I'm just going to take this opportunity to invite the Assistant Commissioner in charge of National TB Leprosy Program to give us some opening remarks and introduce our
Thank you, Dr. Shigis. Good morning to you all. The name is Dr. Tuya Havestavia, and like he said, I'm acting assistant commissioner in charge of TB leprosy division at the Ministry of Health. I don't think I should stand here. Let me remain close to you. I want to welcome you to this randomization ceremony, and also thank you for keeping time. I think majority of the people came in on time. I was the timekeeper. I saw people entering on time. I said, this is good. I'm not a bit late. So thank you for keeping time and for starting on time. Sometimes you want to do an activity, but the beginning is usually not easy, but you kept time, so we have been able to start on time. So I want to welcome you again to this randomization ceremony. This expert TB study comes in at a time when the country is struggling to find additional TB cases. We call them missed cases, but they are there in the community. So this, and I know you know that at your different facilities in your different regions and the districts, you know that you are not meeting the expected targets that we are supposed to be working on. So this study comes in to give us more innovations, to give us more energy, to see if we can find more TB cases. But besides that, I have seen it also wants to help us to improve the quality of care. For those who will be in the test or intervention arm, I've seen we want to do same-day treatment initiation. Now, with the introduction of the gene expert, we have had issues with late treatment initiation, especially where the expert is not on site. So this, I see it as an innovation that is going to help us to improve outcomes because we have been having issues with the initial loss to follow-up, results not returning to the firing sites. So this same-day treatment initiation is one of the things that has caught my attention. And I know it will be possible because we are going to have the machines at the sites of intervention. Now, the other interesting thing that I see with this, and I want you to embrace, is that we are going to have experts at the Health Center 3 level. So this study, I think, is one of the landmark innovations that we shall have, because our expert, until recent, has been at hospital and above. It is in this round that we have reached some health center 4s. But now we are going further to Health Center 3 level. This is the nearest point of care that we can take the best diagnostic technology to reach the community. So this, I'm seeing a lot of advantages in this study to the TB program. And the number of machines are therefore going to increase. So we are happy that this one is coming in at this time. When we want to find additional cases, and I'm sure we should be able to find additional cases, given the sensitivity of the expert compared to the microscope that we have been using. The other key message that I get from this study is about the cost analysis. For the first time, we shall be able to know what this intervention and what our standard of care costs. Yes, we shall find an additional case, but what will it take? Or what has it been taking us? So that is also another key element I see in this study. And the standard of care, I want it to be standard of care, because we know that actually what we have recommended as the diagnostic algorithm is not being implemented at all sites. So in this, I think we need to first take people through what the standard of care is, so that they do actually the standard of care, and then we can say it compares with the intervention arm. So we need to understand the standard of care, take people who are in the standard of care through, and they implement it the way it's supposed to be implemented. Then we can able compare and see what it means. Expert machines, additional, yes, the increased DF is also there. So I see a lot of good things already in this expert TB study if it is implemented according to what I've read briefly. And I'll be behind the principal investigators to see that we implement it accordingly. I think other than that, I want to wish you the best of the opening ceremony. I want to declare the ceremony open. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming and making time to be with us this morning. We're very excited to have you. We're also very excited to move to the next phase of this project, which I'm sure many of you are as well. Some of you have been working with us for almost 2 years now, hoping to keep moving forward. And so I think we're finally ready. And so we really welcome your participation and feedback. And thank you for all the work you've done to help us prepare to get to this point so far. So I just wanted to kind of go over what the next phase of the project is going to look like. This is going to be a very sort of high-level, quick overview. And then we'll leave some time for you all to ask questions, either about what you've been doing so far, or about any of the things I tell you about what we're planning to do next. Okay? So, starting with just what's the goal of this project, this trial. So to me, the goal is very simple. We want to increase the number of patients who are diagnosed with TB, but not just diagnosed, who are actually then linked to treatment. Right? So we have many patients who we test, we know they test positive, but yet, for many reasons, they're not on treatment. So what we're really trying to achieve here, as Dr. Stavia mentioned, is to make sure patients are diagnosed and then treated quickly. So when we think about why this has not been happening, we've talked to many of you. Right? So these are some of the key observations that we've summarized on this slide from conversations and interviews that we've had with staff at your facilities and with staff at other health facilities in Uganda. So some of the barriers to achieving this goal that you all mentioned to us, and also patients that we talked to. So first, time and resource constraints, so high workload, particularly in the laboratory. You're not just doing TB work, you're doing malaria testing, you're doing testing for STDs, for UTIs, all sorts of other things. So overall, you've told us that testing for TB takes a long time. It takes up a lot of your time. And overall, because of that, the motivation to do TB testing and TB care is somewhat less. You've also told us that there's this belief that TB evaluation is not urgent. If a child is coming in with fever and you're worried about malaria, you get that blood smear and you make sure that you start that child on treatment on that same day, right? But for TB, and this is partly, I think, the fault of TB researchers and policymakers like myself in the program, but we tell you tell the patients, okay, you come back tomorrow, you give me a sputum. Then you come back one more time and you give me another sputum. And then maybe we'll take 1 week to analyze those. And then you come back a third time, and then if you're positive, we'll start you on treatment. And we know that this is not working. Many patients are not finishing this whole process. They either don't come back, so you tell us that the patients don't come back after that initial visit because of the time it takes to spend it to come to the health center, because of the cost to them of coming to the health center. So we're really, this multi-day process has not been working. The second is that although we have expert testing now in Uganda, mainly at hospitals and some now level 4 health centers, the mechanisms to transport sputum have been inconsistent. They're not every day, maybe twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, but even then, it's not consistent, and sometimes it takes a 2-hour test can take more than 1 week to get results back to the health center. Okay. You also have told us there's an inability to track and follow up patients. So if they come back with a positive result, either on the microscopy or their expert testing, it's difficult for you to then go into the community to find them, to trace them, right? The vehicles may be broken or may not have fuel. You may not have staff to go out and do community tracing. So really, if the patients leave that initial health center visit, most times they won't come back. So that really tells us we need to get the diagnosis and treatment started at that initial visit. I've put there some of the quotes from some of you, right? When they have a cough for more than 2 weeks, they're sent to the lab. But the problem is they get the first sample, and sometimes, actually most times, they don't bring the second sample. So I'm guessing this is something that many of you see all the time, right? Patients just aren't coming back. And then the third group of barriers is related to kind of things within the clinic. So you told us there's lack of communication and coordination among staff. You're not regularly aware of what the problems are with the process of TB evaluation. You don't communicate about it regularly. You also mentioned insufficient oversight from the NTP. The district TB supervisor may come by, they may not come by for many months. And so you're not really getting the oversight and support that you sort of had wanted. So things like actually at times we have met, but we don't meet regularly. Only when we realize there's a problem, that's when we communicate and say, why is this happening? Then we try to rectify. So this idea that if you were more aware of what the problems were, you could meet about them more frequently and improve the quality of care. So these are the barriers that the Expel TB intervention was designed to address. Okay? And these interventions were chosen involving key stakeholders, the NTLP, many of the health center staff that we had interviewed. We're all involved in sort of coming up with what are the critical things we need to do to try to address these barriers. So the first component of this intervention is on-site gene expert testing at the health clinic. Rather than sending sputum and transporting it elsewhere, can we do the expert testing on-site? So for that, we've been waiting for this new gene expert instrument. Right? And so they've come up with one they're calling it GeneX1. Right? So it's a one-module device. It does one test at a time. But the key thing is that it's battery operated. At many of your facilities, there are issues with continuous power supply. And so what's nice about this device is that it's operated with a battery, and the battery can be charged using a solar panel. Right? So it doesn't require you to have stable electricity. So that's really the kind of key innovation that allows this molecular testing, this gene expert testing, to be done at Health Center 4 and even Health Center 3s for some of you. But we know that just a new machine is not enough, right? The machine is not going to fix all of the problems with sort of quality of care. So there are some co-interventions we want to introduce along with this device to hopefully implement it in a high-quality manner. So the first is really redesigning the processes at the clinic to facilitate same-day testing and treatment. Right? And this is to address this lack of urgency and the failure of patients to return. And so what we've done in the past in the pilot study is work with the health center staff to really figure out how can we prioritize patients getting to the lab early, having a sputum collected even before they are seen by the clinician, right? Such that by the time the clinician sees them, the result is already out and that clinician can act on that result. For each clinic, those processes might be a little bit different, but that's something when we introduce the intervention at the health centers that are assigned to receive it, we'll be working with the staff to think about how can we change the processes around to facilitate rapid testing and treatment of patients. And the third intervention is regular feedback of quality metrics. So many of you have told us we'd like to know where the problems are in the process. Is it that we're not testing the sputum fast enough, the result is not getting to the patient, even if the result got to the patient, they're not starting treatment. So what we're going to do is provide you with a report card, right, that outlines each of the steps in this process. Right? And the report card will have a score that says what proportion of patients are completing each of those key steps involved in TB evaluation. So you can see for yourself how you're doing at your health center in comparison to how all the health centers in the project overall are doing. And so the idea in giving you this health center is then giving you this report card is for you to discuss it at staff meetings so you can sort of figure out amongst yourself what are the things we can do differently in order to fix some of these gaps, right? Places where there are losses along this process of evaluation. And so we'll work with you to show you how to review the report card and to go through basic quality improvement steps to sort of improve the processes of care. So overall, together, we're calling this the Expel TB intervention. So it's a combination of this gene expert testing on site with these other processes to deliver that gene expert testing in a high quality manner. So these are the objectives of this project. Okay? So the first is asking the question, is this intervention effective? Right? So we want to know whether this intervention increases the proportion of patients who are diagnosed with TB and treated rapidly in comparison to routine care. Okay? The second objective addresses the question, can this intervention be implemented well? Is it actually feasible to do all of the three things I mentioned on the previous slide? So we want to identify factors that influence uptake of each intervention component at the health centers. Where are health centers doing well, and what aspects of the intervention are health centers struggling with? This will help the program, if this intervention is successful, figure out how to scale it up to other health centers. Okay? And third, as Dr. Steiner mentioned, it's always important to know, is it worth it? Right? Is it worth the additional cost, right, of doing gene expert testing on site, of doing quality improvement on site? So we'll be sort of assessing what are the costs and cost effectiveness of intervention in comparison to routine care. And again, this is very important for the program to understand what is it going to take to scale up this intervention across the country if it's effective. So this is a very kind of quick summary of the basic design of the trial. There's not a lot of detail here, so if you have additional questions, please feel free to ask them. So this is what we call a cluster randomized trial. And by that, what we mean is that, with randomized trials, sometimes you randomize patients, right? You assign one patient to the intervention, one patient to standard of care. Here, we're not randomizing patients, we're randomizing clusters. And by clusters, I mean health centers, right? So one whole health center will receive the intervention, and other health centers will receive the standard of care. So all patients who present to a health center who's assigned to the intervention arm will receive the intervention. Right? So the cluster randomized trial just means that the randomization is occurring at the level of the health center rather than the level of the patient. So today, and you'll hear more about this in a little bit, we're going to select 10 health centers to receive the intervention and 10 to continue routine care. Okay? Right now, we don't know which health centers are in which group. And so that's really the focus of today, and we'll explain that process in more detail. But I also want to note, as Dr. Achilles mentioned, that all health centers will receive a gene expert device at the end of the trial. Right? So even if you're not assigned to the intervention arm, right, after the trial period is over, we will be providing the gene expert device, particularly if we show that it's effective. If we show that it's not working at all, then it doesn't make sense. Right? But the goal here is to show that it's effective and then to provide this to all of the health centers. So I know some of you might walk away feeling bad if you don't get assigned to the intervention arm, but I want to assure you that our goal is to make sure that all of the health centers have a gene expert device by the end of this project. Okay? So in terms of data collection, for the first objective, to assess whether the intervention is effective, you all have already been sending us photos from your TB registers, from your expert referral forms. So we'll ask you to continue doing that. And we'll be extracting patient data from those photos to assess whether or not, what proportion of patients are being diagnosed with and treated for TB. We'll also be calling and tracing patients 6 months after they present to the health center to assess their vital status. Are they alive, right, or are they dead? And that's both for patients who have TB, but also for those who we don't diagnose with TB. We want to know what happened to them. Okay? For the second objective, we'll be doing patient and staff surveys and interviews also with the staff. These are things that we've been doing already at many of the health centers, not necessarily some of the newer ones that have joined the project. So these are things that you're familiar with, but we'll be doing them sort of on a larger scale than we did during the baseline period. And for the third objective, we'll be doing some costing studies and some budget reviews. These are also processes that we've started at some of the health centers and will continue at all the health centers during the trial period. This is the timeline that we're hoping to follow. So right now we're in August, so we're having this randomization ceremony today. So once we assign the intervention and routine care health centers, in September, right, of this year, so next month, we'll start visiting the sites to do training. At the intervention sites, we'll train them on the GeneXpert device and the intervention and the other intervention components. At the routine care sites, we'll be retraining on the current Uganda NTLP TB guidelines, so everyone is familiar with them. As Dr. Savia mentioned, we want to make sure that the routine care is delivered as it should be. So after that, in October, we'll actually start data collection for the trial. And that will continue for 18 months, right? So through March of 2020. Right, so that's the trial period. It's going to be 18 months. The 6-month vital status assessment will continue for 6 months after that, but the trial will be over in March of 2020. The patient surveys will start sometime in 2019, in the middle of the year. And then the clinic staff, the health center staff surveys and interviews will be toward the end of the project, right, in the last 6 months. So this is the kind of overall timeline you can expect. Once we start, we expect to stick to this timeline, unlike the last 2 years, which have taken longer for us to get started. But now that we hopefully get started today, we hope to continue moving forward quickly in this manner. So I'll just end by just acknowledging the funders for this study, the U.S. National Institutes of Health. Cepheid is the company that is producing the GeneXpert devices, and they've donated the GeneXpert devices that will be used for this project. And then you've met some of the people here from the various project partners, including the NTLP and NTRL. Dr. Jaloba will be here later, hopefully. And then McCarry University College of Health Sciences, University of California, San Francisco, the London School, and then colleagues from Johns Hopkins and Yale University who are not here today. So those are the many different partners who are going to help us to achieve all of the objectives of this project. So thank you for your attention, and if you have questions, happy to take them now.
They are not all that like questions, but I'll just need some clarification. Thank you very much, Dr. Achiles and Adia. Is it Adia? Adithya. Okay. I'm Ronald from Rural District. I'm so happy for this study because of the objectives, but my concern goes to the aspect of security. When you do come to our health center 3s, majority of them, we don't have designated or well-established laboratories. Sometimes we just improvise, just get a room and you tell someone be working from there. Now, we've had issues of theft of batteries, of our solar, even some solar panels. So I don't know whether we looked into that, what could be the security, because telling an in charge of the center 3 that you provide good security, shall we have something like a cabin where it's going to be kept, things of that nature? Thank you very much.
And I think these are some of the suggestions that we would want from you also to see. How do we keep it secure? If you say that we need to create a cabin and have it secured in a corner, maybe with some metal bars, then we need to go for that. But these are some of the suggestions that you think, because you know the place better, you know what can work, what might not work. Because in addition to this, we shall have, say, a solar panel to help charge the battery when power is not there. How do we secure that? If it is secured on the roof with some metals, is it secure enough? Or do we have to put it indoors and we just put it outside to charge during the day and the evening we carry it inside? As I have seen in many places they do that. But some people secure them with some metal on the roof. And these are some of the suggestions that we would want, and maybe try to implement those.
Yeah, so first, thank you for raising that concern. I think it's a very important one. Obviously, these machines are expensive. They also come with a laptop, so the laptop also has to be secure and can be carried away. The solar batteries, the batteries also can be carried away. So I think, really this is, as Achilles said, it's going to depend on, each site is going to be probably different, I assume. And the security needs will be somewhat different, and we'll have to work with you during the training to figure out and identify, who's responsible for the device, for the laptop, for the battery. Is there a place where we can lock them? If not, is that something we can create? These instruments are also quite portable, right? So, is it, can they be taken to somewhere safe, right? Especially the laptop, is there one person who can be designated to take it home or something? I mean, I think every health center will need to have its own solution, but the issue of security is a very important one. I think for the program as well, if we can't show that we can keep these devices securely, then it's not going to make sense for the program to scale it up at Health Center 3s. Right? So that is part of the challenge that we have, but I'm hopeful that we can overcome it because, as Dr. Stavia said, if we can really deliver this testing at the Health Center 3 level, where patients are, near kind of the community, that's how we're going to find all of those missing sort of TB patients. Right? But this is definitely a challenge that we'll need to address.
Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Okay, thank you. And that is my name. My concern is on the GeneXpert. It's a one-module GeneXpert or machine. And then take an example of a facility which is going to participate in this, which has a high volume of patients. For example, they might be having like 10 samples a day. So are they going to be selective or segregated and they work on two? Because I believe the turnaround time is the same. So are they going to be segregated, or we are going to actually maybe put a fridge to make this sample viable? I don't know.
Yeah, I think from our data, and this probably say for a particular facility, the numbers which we have observed over time probably are adequate to be done. But maybe there are some facilities which have 10 or more samples a day.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. In the data that we've seen so far, that we've collected from many of the health centers, we have not seen, on average we're seeing something around maybe 30 patients a month, right? So some are a little bit more and some are a little bit less than that. There might be, but despite the average, there might be days where there are patients, like you were saying. And so I think, again, that's one of the challenges of delivering this testing on site. And so each site will have to come up with how they want to sort of handle that. Do they ask some patients to come back? Do they prioritize ones who are HIV infected? Or they prioritize children, for example? So when there are, so basically with this device, you can do about 4 tests a day, right? Because each test takes about 2 hours. So in one working day, you can do maybe 4 or 5 tests. So if there are more patients than that, then you will have to come up with what you think works best at your health center for how to deliver the testing and trying to achieve the goal of making sure patients are tested and diagnosed as fast as possible. Right? But I don't think there's going to be one answer for every health center.
Okay, good morning. I've been told to introduce myself. I'm Randomized Innocent. I'm from St. Francis Healthcare Services in Jail. Thank you very much for the presentation. In addition to his question, you say data tells you that facilities would, on average, test about 10 samples. Have you anticipated that now that we're going to have GeneXpert machines in particular facilities, that the neighboring facilities will get to know and start sending their patients to those facilities, where now the load will go up? And what happens when their load goes up? Then question 2 is about data collection. Previously, you've been taking pictures. Is that going to continue? Now that you're giving us laptop, what is going to be the mode of data collection? I was thinking, I don't know, because if you are going to have laptops, are they going to be connected to internet that is going to be continuous communication, flow of data? Are we going to be actively involved? Unlike in the past where we're taking pictures and that was passive involvement in data collection. So our facility is going to be actively involved in collecting data. Then I was thinking about, is it possible that we can have an app, all right, where maybe in facilities that people, well, you're going to train people to use computers, but in case people are not computer literate, can we think of part of an app where people can enter data on their smartphones and directly send to the database, the national database, something of that sort?
One thing that is going to continue, we shall continue to take photos and continue to collect data for that. As you know, the laptop is, all of you have experience with the Gene Expert, the 4 module. It has a desktop on site, and that desktop is the one which helps to patch in information for the patient and then be able to generate the results. So the laptop is going to play that role in this case. It's going to be the one that is going to type in the information and generate it. And probably for now, the information will be captured at those sites for patient care and will also be recorded into the registers. It's not going to be centrally sent as for now to NTI, but it's a risk that in the future probably that may come, but it's not for now.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. So the laptop is specifically to operate the Gene Expert instrument, right? So we don't want it being used for other things because, as you know, that you can introduce viruses, you can introduce all sorts of things which cause the laptop to malfunction. So just like the desktops that are used at the hospitals, they're really supposed to be restricted to just operating the Gene Expert machine. The data collection that you guys have been doing with the phones, that will continue, right? Because remember, half of the health centers won't receive a laptop, right? Or a Gene Expert device. They'll be continuing. So we want all of the data collection to be the same. We are not planning to involve the staff in data collection other than sending photos, mostly because we want to minimize any additional workload, right, that you have to do. Extracting data and entering it takes time, right? And one of the things that you all have told us is that you don't have lots of extra time, right? So that's why we want to take on that burden. So we'll continue to ask you to take photos, and we will extract the data. But for the intervention health centers, we'll be sending the data back as a report card. Is there one more question?
There's one question which is...
What was your third question?
The health facilities, other health facilities now in
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that we'll have to monitor is to see, we know what your patient volume was the year before, and then we can be able to assess, is that changing considerably compared to what it was before? And, how we would deal with that, that's, an interesting question. I don't know, Catherine, if you want to comment at all on how that could be addressed, or maybe that just becomes the new sample size for the trial.
And that is a potential risk of cluster randomized trials in terms of contamination, and it's a really good point to raise. I think what we said is that we will be monitoring the denominator, the number of patients particularly over the time period, and we'll be able to see if that has increased in the intervention arms. But we wouldn't be able to stop that in any way. But it is a risk for the study, but also a common problem with cluster randomized trial. Thank you.
Any other questions? As those people who came in later introduce themselves, and as we get, so I think there are some people who came in. Just introduce yourself, and then can I have any more questions? After this, you should be able to have a quick break, maybe some break tea for some 30 minutes. Then we shall be coming back to continue with the actual randomization ceremony presentation, and then we do the randomization.
My name is Amnandi Hadija from Wabungo Center 3, Maige District.
Maybe another question to ask, that as you saw that list, is your center represented? There is a list. There are some other new places.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nyangari James, DTLS Giana. Good morning. I'm by the name of Jopa Francis, the district law for Purpose of Giana.
Good morning. I cover Faith Leaflet. My name is Tanukaita Joint Coordinator, Kampala, NTRA. Jenny Vavige is my name from NTRA, Utric Coordinator.
Good morning. I'm Kayanja Tom from Chiganda Heritage Center for Mobendi.
This is Kalanga Place from Center 3, Mayuke District.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tere, the host.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Deborah Namudu from Maranga Health Center 3.
Any other person who has not introduced? In front here? Okay.
Good morning. Derek Central Center 4, Kalongo District.
Good morning. David Oliver, District, Coco Paso.
Three more people here.
Hello. My name is Antonia Philo, and I'm the student person.
Good morning. I am Moses Musisi, Rainbow District ETLS.
Yeah, so there are some more before I invite you for
Good morning. I'm Godfrey Kakaide.
I'm Nakanike Alex from PG. That is Sechunga Health Center 3.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think unless there are any more questions or comments, I just want to say once again we thank Alicia for the presentation. Where is our break team? Downstairs. For so many years, her work focusing on cluster randomized trials. And we are happy that she came to help us really understand how we can randomize and be fair to each other. She has been collaborating a lot with people in South Africa and also with the Wellcome Trust Liverpool team, which is based in Blantyre, Malawi. And we are now also happy that from South Africa, Malawi, now she's in Uganda. So you see, also lucky. So she's going to be taking us through the next process of how are we going to do the randomization. Then as we go through that, then we shall follow up by actually doing it. So for now, she's just going to tell us the whole process. Then we shall do it, and then we call it a day. So, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay at the back?
Yes.
Okay. So for me, this is a really exciting part of the project for randomization. And so what I'm going to do is spend the next 15, 20 minutes going through the process of how we're going to randomize these 20 facilities that Olivia and Achilles have mentioned, 10 to the intervention arm and 10 to the routine care arm. So before I do that, I'm just going to have a quick recap of what those two arms are. Aditya went through this earlier on this morning, but let me just do a very quick recap. So for the routine care arm, there are 3 components. On-site sputum smear, microscopy at each of the health facilities. Referral sputum per expert at the hub. And then finally, regular supervision. So that's our routine care. Sometimes we're referring to it as standard of care. The intervention arm also has 3 components. And as we've just been discussing earlier on this morning, there's going to be an on-site expert machine doing on-site expert testing at the health facilities. And then there's also, in addition, clinic process redesign to really help collect and test sputum before the patient leaves the health facility. And then finally, regular feedback of quality indicators, quality metrics to the health facility staff. So those are the 2 arms. This is the intervention arm, and then the standard of care or routine care. So I guess the first question you might ask is, well, what is randomization in the context of this trial, and also why are we doing it? So just to start off with what we mean by randomization, it's a method of assigning each of those 20 health facilities to either receive the intervention or the routine care by chance. And chance is the really important thing. It's like tossing a coin. We're going to do this purely by chance, okay? No other interference, no other choosing which arm you might want to be in, but just purely by chance. So each facility will then have an equal chance of either being in the intervention arm or in the routine care arm. And that's really crucial for the randomization. And why are we doing this? Well, really, the main reason why we're doing this is it minimizes bias. It will really help us understand the results of the study in about 18 months' time, but maybe a bit longer. It basically ensures that the intervention and routine care arms are as similar as possible at the start of the study with respect to important factors that might be associated with our study outcome. So that's a very quick summary of what randomization is and why we're doing it for this study. So there are various ways we might want to randomize. I'm going to start off describing the simple approach, okay? And then I'll explain why that might be problematic in this study. So the simple approach is that we have these 20 facilities, and we're just going to randomly assign 10 of them to be in the intervention arm and 10 to be in the routine care arm. And we actually can list all possible ways of doing that. Okay, there's a mathematical formula which allows you to calculate the total number of possible ways of doing that. And I've listed that on the slide here. So there's 184,757 possible ways of doing that. Okay? So that seems a large number of ways, that seems great. However, the problem with doing this in the context of randomizing a number of clusters, can we... Yeah, I'm sorry, it keeps fading in and out. Is this better?
This one?
Oh, this one, okay. So the potential problem with doing this simple randomization is that we're only randomizing a small number of clusters. Editha explained the clusters with the facilities. We've only got 20 facilities that we're randomizing. It's still a very large study, but with only 20 facilities randomized to either receive the intervention or the routine care, what we're at great risk of is that there might be that the intervention and the routine care arms might not be similar at the baseline, at the start of the study. And that's a huge problem. And it's actually a very common problem with cluster randomized trials, where we're randomizing a small number of units, a small number of facilities. So this simple randomization is fantastic if you have a large number of units, a large number of facilities. But with only 20, we're going to actually take a more complex approach. So the more complex approach to randomization is an approach which actually we commonly use in cluster randomized trials. So it's nothing that's unusual. It's an approach that I've used many times when we've conducted a cluster randomized trial. And what this complex approach is attempting to do is to ensure that the study groups, the intervention and the routine care arms, are similar with respect to really important baseline data provided by each of the facilities. So it's really, the real goal is to try and make sure they're as similar as possible. And there are two components to this more complex randomization. The first component is called stratification. So what we're going to do is divide the facilities into two groups. And then with each of those two groups, we're going to then randomize those facilities to receive either the intervention or routine care. So that's the first component of this more complex randomization. It's called stratification. And then the second approach, which we're going to actually add on, is called restriction. And restriction is actually a very common approach in cluster randomized trials. And what we're doing by restriction is that we're going to eliminate certain randomizations that have, just by chance, given an imbalance with respect to the intervention and control arm. So we're going to eliminate randomizations that have unbalanced arms. So these two approaches really help achieve our goal of making the intervention arm and the routine care arm as similar as possible at the start of the study. And that's really, really crucial for this type of study. So as you might have heard or guessed, in order to do this, we're going to have to use data collected around the clinics. So as you've all been participating in, there's been a huge amount of baseline data collected from 2017 that has been used for the randomization. And again, I think that this data collection has been crucial for the randomization. We wouldn't have been able to do this randomization in such a way without such data. So the baseline data that have been collected are data from the NTLP presumptive TB registers, the TB laboratory registers, the expert requisition forms, and the TB treatment registers. And those data include information on basic patient demographics, HIV status, the TB test results and the dates of those results, which are really important, as well as treatment status and dates of TB treatment. So there's been a huge amount of data collected and have been analysed to help us with the randomization. So I'm going to quickly summarise the randomization, and then I'm going to show you an example of one example of a randomization. So here is the summary. So we've generated a computer program, and what that program does is first of all perform the stratification. So we're stratifying the facilities into two groups, and the two groups are stratified based on the proportion of patients undergoing TB testing and who are diagnosed with TB and started on TB treatment within 14 days. So that's one of the key data points that were collected as part of their baseline data collection. So that percentage, we have that percentage for each of the 20 clinics. And what we've done is just ordered the clinics in terms of increasing size of that percentage. And those with a percentage less than 6.2%, there are 10 clinics, are in the first group. And then those clinics who have a percentage greater than 6.2% are in the second group. So that's what we mean by stratification. The first group has 10 facilities, all with this percentage, this proportion, less than 6.2%. And the other group have 10 facilities with this proportion greater than or equal to 6.2%. And then we do a randomization of each of those 10 facilities. So the 10 facilities in the first group, 5 are randomized to the intervention, 5 are randomized to the standard of care routine. So that's the first component. And because we've done stratification, the number of possible ways of doing that is reduced, but there's still a very large number of ways. There's around there's exactly 63,504 ways of doing that. We can list those in our computer program. So on top of that, we're going to do our restriction. So as I said before, what restriction is doing is it's eliminating some of those randomizations for which the facilities in the two groups are imbalanced, are not similar. And the data that we've used for restriction are the part of the data that's been collected for 2017, and I've listed all of the restriction variables in this slide. So we are going to be restricting, so eliminating randomizations where there's not a balance. First of all, for the percentage of starting TB treatment within 14 days. We've stratified on that, but we're going to also restrict on that because we think that's a very important variable to stratify on. We're also going to restrict on urban and rural status, HIV prevalence of clinic attendees being investigated for TB, the number of facilities per district, year enrolled in the project, that's either 2017 or the more recent facilities were enrolled in 2018. The frequency of sputum transport to the expert hub, that does differ across the facilities. The distance to the expert hub, and finally the number of patients being evaluated for TB. So all of these data have been used for our restriction. So when we apply the restriction criteria, we're now left with 11,392 randomizations. So it's still a very large number of randomizations that we've used. So for convenience, what we've done is we've just randomly selected 10,000 of those randomizations. And that list is then exported into Excel. And I'm going to show you the next few slides what that list looks like. And there's some printed copies as well. In order to understand what this list looks like, you might have noticed that the facilities, the 20 facilities have all been given a facility ID. So attached to your agenda, you should have a list of the facilities and the ID number 1 through 20. So I would make a note of your ID for your particular facility. This is pretty crucial. It's just a very quick way of looking at our facilities. So has everyone's facility listed? I hope so. And if you've identified your facility ID. Okay. So now let's look at what that Excel spreadsheet. I've just given you a snapshot of what that Excel spreadsheet looks like. And what I've listed here is the first 7 randomizations. I'll just quickly move this. So I've listed the first 7 randomizations, going right from the first row down to number here, and I've also listed the last randomization. You'll see that we've labelled those possible randomizations starting from 0000, 0001, all the way up to 9999. And that makes a total of 10,000 possible randomizations. Okay, so the randomization number is in the first column of the Excel spreadsheet. And that's a really crucial number that you'll see in the next few slides. Sorry, I hope you can see okay. What you'll also see is 20 columns labelled 1 through 20, and they represent those 20 facilities. So facility number 1 is in this column here. Facility number 2 is in this column. So that's where the facility ID is important. What you can
Yes, but
okay. Sorry, I think I tripped over these. We should have had this break at the really important part where we are actually randomizing. So this is premature. So what you'll also see in this example of the Excel spreadsheet is each row represents a separate randomization. So let's just look at the first row. It's labeled 0000. And then you see these letters, A and B. In that first row, there are 10 facilities which got an A, and there are 10 facilities which got a B. You can see we've labelled them Group A and Group B at the top of the hall. Okay. So in each of these rows, there are exactly 10 facilities which have got an A attached to it, and there are 10 facilities which have got a B attached to it. And there are a total of 10,000 of those. Let me just come out of the Excel spreadsheet and show you, the PowerPoint, and show you the actual Excel file. Okay? You'll just see the first few columns, but you can see here that the first row looks like 0000, the second row is 0001, and if I go to the bottom of this file, which takes me right down to the last randomization, which is labelled 9999. And each of these rows is unique, is different. It is a different way of randomizing those 20 clinics to either on Group A or to Group B. And each of the rows have precisely 10 facilities in Group A and 10 facilities in Group B. So we can just move up, and you can see there are lots of them. There's a list going through there. Do you want to just quickly make sure you're happy with the list? Just make sure that there's the first column has a randomization number attached to it, starting with 0000, and it should be the next row should be 0001, and so on. Does that look? Yeah. I mean, just go to the top. So there's one list over here. There's another list. So we have an independent person over here looking at our list. So the reason why we didn't print out a copy for everyone is that list is 179 pages long. So it's a big list. Okay, so that's why there's 3 copies in the room. And no, you're the important person. I think you're going to be help us later on, actually. Thank you. Okay. So that's our list of 10,000 possible randomizations. And that's based on this approach of stratification and restriction. Now let me explain how we're actually going to do it. And there's going to be 2 stages to this randomization. So the first stage is from that list of 10,000 possible randomizations, we're going to select one at random. entirely at random. Okay? And I'll explain in the next few slides how we're going to do that. So remember that each of these randomizations are listed and have a randomization code from 0000 up to 9999. And we're going to select one of those rows of the Excel spreadsheet entirely at random. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to continue with the football theme of 2018, and you'll see later that we're going to have 10 footballs, and each of those footballs will be of the same size and colour, but each of them have got a number from 0 up to 9 drawn on the football. So the first ball will have 0, the second ball will have 1, and so on. So there are 10 footballs in total with a number from 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 9. What are we going to do with those? Well, we're going to place each of these 10 footballs into a non-see-through bag. Okay, we're going to shake them so that there's no sort of number 1 doesn't not near the top, or number 10, number 9 so is not near the bottom. So we're going to make sure that the bag has been shaken. And what we're going to do then is select 4 balls from that bag, and each of these 4 balls corresponds to one of the 4 digits in that randomization code that we saw earlier. And that's a random way of selecting one of those randomizations listed in the Excel spreadsheet. Okay, it sounds quite complicated, but when we get to look at it, I think it will be clear what we're doing. So we're going to select 4 balls at random, and each of these 4 balls will correspond to one of the 4 digits in the randomization. Well, how are we going to select those 4 balls? Okay, that's where people in the audience are going to help us. So 4 representatives will be chosen from the audience, and each of those 4 representatives will select a ball randomly from the bag containing these 10 balls labelled 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 9. So the first person will select the first ball, and the number on that first ball will represent the first digit from that randomization number. Then we'll ask the second person to come up. They will select a second ball, and the number on that football represents the second digit of that randomization number. They'll place the ball back in the bag. The third person comes up, again selects a ball at random, will shake the bag each time, and that ball, the number on that ball represents the third digit. And finally, the fourth person will come up, select a ball at random, a football at random, show us what the number is, and that ball represents the 4th digit. And so then we'll have a number, a 4-digit number. We're going to write down on this, we'll write it down on the board here, and that's the randomization row that we've chosen. Exactly. So we'll go back to the Excel spreadsheet, and we'll look to see which of the clinics, or which of the facilities are in Group A, and which of the facilities are in Group B. And you're going to help us read out the facilities. Okay. We have 2 people checking as well. Okay. Right. So that's the first stage of the randomization. Let me give you an example. Okay. This is just an example. Okay. This is purely just for illustration. So suppose that the number that came up when those 4 representatives selected a ball each was 0004. Suppose that's just purely example. We'll look at the Excel spreadsheet and we'll read off the row representing that number, okay? And you should see the same numbers, it's a little bit difficult to see, but you should see the same pattern of A's and B's representing that randomization number of 0004. So I can quickly read off now that I can see that facilities 1, 2, 4, 9, 10, 11, 14, 15, 16, and 20 all have Group A, and the remaining facilities are in Group So we'll have group B, I beg your pardon, and the remaining facilities have group A. Okay, so there are 10 facilities in group B and 10 in group A. So that's just an example, okay? And we're going to then do this for real in the next few minutes. So that's an example. So at that point, okay, we've got our randomization. We know which of the 10 clinics are in group A and which of the 10 clinics are in group B. We now have to decide whether group A or whether group B receives the intervention. Okay, so really this is the crucial part. Yeah. So this is the kind of the most exciting part of the randomization. Is group A the intervention, or is group B the intervention? So how are we going to do that? Again, we're going to do that in a random manner. So we have our fifth person who selects a football. So it's one football. Well, the person will show us the number on that football. If it's an even number, so 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, then group A receives the intervention and group B is routine care. Okay? However, if the number selected is odd, so 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9, then group B will receive the intervention and group A is the routine care. So that's our stage 2 of our randomization. We'll then know whether group A is the intervention or whether group B is the intervention. So, I hope that that's given you a flavour of how we're going to do the randomization. I really do welcome questions at this point. So anyone want to, any points of clarification?
Is it clear? See, there are so many ways you can arrange 20 facilities. Is it? Yes. You may say, we start with Kigandaro, we put in Uwama, we put in. So those 20 clinics can be arranged 10,000 times order, which probably we may not do using our heads. So there are so many ways it can be arranged. There are so many randomizations that can be done. But using the computer, we are helped to come up with that list. And after coming up with that list, which of those ways they can arrange this should we take? Now the chance comes in. And that's where we are going to select 4 people to come and select the 4 balls, as she said. And as those 4 people select the 4 balls, and we are going to beat that all of us out of the 20, we have a chance to participate, but we shall select 4 by chance. So we have names written for each of the health facilities represented here. And we shall call someone to come and certify and we put it in the bag. Then we shall shuffle. And then we select 4. Those 4 people will be the ones to come and select the balls. And those balls will make our code. The code shall just explain, and now we shall begin deciding what is A and what is B. But as he said, we don't know who is A, whether it's the intervention or who is. We also need to decide who is in A and who is in B. Then we shall now invite another person to select a ball. If the ball falls in an even number, then he will come. But if the ball is odd, he will come. So, is it that fair? Yeah? Okay, someone has a question.
Thank you, Doctor. My question arises from the list of 20 facilities. On them, these facilities are of different levels. The facilities are of different levels. Some are health center 3, some are health center 4. But in the stratification, the level wasn't considered. Yet I think also the level of the facility could have an effect. The parameters we are considering population and the rest, but the level wasn't considered.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that question. So there are other factors, as you saw on the list, which are likely to be very associated with level 3 and 4. So instead of taking the level 3 and 4 facilities into account, we've taken into other levels into account. And actually the crucial variable, the crucial description of the clinics, which we've really spent a lot of time thinking about, is this proportion of patients being investigated for TB that have microbiologically confirmed TB and started treatment within the next 14 days. And that might well vary across level 3 and 4 categories, but because that variable relates, well actually it is essentially close to what our primary outcome is, the main outcome of the trial, we opted for that variable. But you're right, there are other factors that we might have used, but having looked at the data, we felt that these would actually accommodate some of the other data in the background. Thank you.
Any other questions? Is it clear to everybody? Can we move to the next step? Okay. The next step, we are going to select 4 representatives from the 20 facilities to pick those food posts. So, these are the health facilities. Kate is going to help me so that people can be able to see that this is empty. You know this system? We have just finished lining up. This time we are now going to do this one. Select. So now I'm going to call a name of a facility, and then someone from that facility will come and be able to say this is the correct name, because I may do something and I put in a different name. So Bishop Asiri, someone from Bishop Asiri should come and confirm that this name is Bishop Asiri. Then follow this and then drop it into that bag. Okay. You can fold it and drop it inside. Busana Health Center 3. Someone from Busana? Okay. Confirm whether it is there. Okay. Now first fold it. Yeah. And then you can put it in there. Then Busesa. Busesa, is there someone from Busesa? Then there's someone from Chiganda also prepares to come. Chiganda. There's Chiganda and there's Chiganda. Is that okay? Yeah, now fold it. Chiganda. Then Kira, someone from Kira who said that he is hosting us. So he should come and fold it. Then Uwama. You're from Kira? Representing Kira, come and confirm Kira. And then fold it and put it in the bag. Is this Uwama? Okay. Fold it and put it inside. Don't go with it. Iganga, Town Council. Iganga Town Council. Then Kinoni should get ready also. Have someone from Kinoni in Luembo. Yes. Confirm, that's the name. Kinoni then, Kitierera, I think this is from Michiana. Mayuge. Kitierera. Yes, Mayuge. Kitierera from Mayuge. should come, and also Lugasa should be preparing to come. Confirm. And we have put a wrong name and I'm trying to make sure that some people have a higher chance of. Is that the one? Followed it and Rampanga. Then someone from Malanga also prepared to come. Malanga. After Malanga, Malongo should also prepare to come. Confirm that's the name. Followed it and drop it. Inside there. Confirm that it's Malongo. Yes. Mayuge Health Center 3. Mayuge. Confirm. Followed. Namungarwe. Health Center 3. Then Nankanduro should prepare. Nankanduro Health Center 4. Confirm. Followed it and drop it. St. Francis in Jeru. St. Francis in Jeru. You're both from St. Francis, eh? Nakanduro. He has finished. He's also from Nakanduro. Okay. St. Francis. Nazigo should come. Then Wabulungu should be next. Confirm, that's the name, followed, and drop it inside there. Last but not least, Bukulura. Is there a health facility that has not had its name being called? We are all represented. Okay. So, now we are going to shuffle and see. We're going to pick the winning ticket. To go where? To Dubai? To where? So now, do you want to decide who should pick the 4? Who should pick the 4? Who should pick the 4? You have decided high? Okay. If you have decided, I'm the Chubundu. So, don't look there, just put your hand inside there. Pick the first one. And the people you are selecting now are the ones who are going to be selecting the boss. Then, the first one is Wabulungu Health Center 3. So, Wabulungu we put there, we shall call him, just wait a bit. We are going to write there, Wabulungu is going to be the one helping us to select the boss, which are going to give us the randomization code, which we shall follow. So, I'm going to pick the second one from this.
Try to be fair.
Yeah. Provided we don't bring it to the same time. So, the next one is Mayuge Health Center 3. Mayuge Health Center 3. Now we are going for the third. The next one is Ruama Health Center 3. Okay. So, now the last one. sometimes they say it's going to take you for a trip. And we are not. So, this is Kiganda Health Center 4. Those are the 4 people who are going to come and now select the boss. The boss which will give us the randomization code. And now, those people who have that Excel sheet, out of those 10,000, we are now going to come up with a code that will guide us on that Excel sheet to get our group here. So now, we need someone to carry this big bag. Yeah, so...
Sarah.
We need to confirm that these balls are actually numbered 1 and 2 as you see. Okay? Otherwise, we may have put only one number. So, So, she said that numbers start from 0. You can see 0 is here. So we are going to put in the big bag. We have number 1. We have number 2. Number 3. Number 4. 5. This 6 or 9? 6 or 9.
6 has a line underneath it.
Is this 6 or 9? 9. Okay, this is 6 as a number underneath.
6 has a line underneath.
Yeah. So we try to 6. So we confirm because later on we may pick. So we have one which has a 7, 8, and 9. We are now sure. So all these balls are going to be put in. What is our big bag? Okay. We are going to put in something that is not transparent, otherwise we are going to give the chance of this big. So we can now put the balls here, all of them. Put there 0, 1, we need to shake, otherwise the things which are going on top will be. Okay, now we are going to ask him to shake very well. Sometimes there's this saying that the doctor told me that I shake the drug before I take it, but maybe I drink the drug and shake mine. You may sort of close the other side so that then you move it. Yeah.
Is that good?
Is it okay now?
It's okay. We are all satisfied it's okay. Now, we started with someone from Wagulungu. Okay, that's good. Otherwise, I was going to start from them now. Wagulungu Health Center 4. which is going to help us pick the first ball. She should not look there, but she can put her hand. Yeah, like that. Because the ball is big, you have to try to pull it. Zero. The first number is 0. You replace it, drop it back, and you have to shake very much now again. For sure. Otherwise, so let's call Mayuge, Center 3. The representative from Mayuge. Yes, he's going to do it. So, he's looking for the one down. 5. Wow. Which means we are shaking well. Now 5. Next one is going to be Buama, but before Buama, we need to shake it. Buama, now. Yeah, number 4. Exactly. We have all confirmed. The last one now. Give us our randomization code. Get ready. Okay. Kiganda, are you ready? For sure. And you can see there was gender balance. Even in the people who selected. See how we just there? There were 2 ladies and 2. Already things are working out. Number 8. So now we keep our bag briefly and we see. Now those people who have those big, which contain 10,000, we are looking for the code 0548, and she's also going to show it to us here, so that we can be able to confirm whether it's the same you have also. 0548 is our code, and it's going to give us. So from here you can see, and I want you to confirm the people who have those 3. The first one is, you have highlighters, please highlight across, you have done so. So facility 1 is B. And facility 1 is what?
I think we're going to, as we will have them go to.
Yeah, Ruampang is now going to B. Facility 2 is A. Facility 2 is Nazigo, is going that side. Facility 3 is A. Facility 3 is A. Facility 4 is also A.
Should we have someone come up from each side so they can hold their signs?
Yeah. Maybe let's people from these facilities come up and hold their signs to know where they are. Rampanga, who is from Rampang? You come here. Someone from Nazigo should go to and Lugasa. And you can even start coming because you already now know the facility number. Facility 5 is A. Facility 4 is Bishop Asiri, is A. Sister. You can see sister was one of those. Facility 5. Facility 6 is also A. Facility 7 is B. Facility 7 is B. Facility 8 is also B. And facility 9 is also B. Facility 10 is B. Facility 11 is also B. Facility 12 is A. Facility 12 is A. Who is facility 12? Facility 13 is A. Facility 13 is A. But facility 14 is B. Facility 14 is B. Facility 15 is B. Facility 16 is B. 16 is B. Facility 17 is A. Facility 18 is A. Facility 19 is B. Facility 19 is B. Facility 20 is A. And those who had those Excel sheet scan, did you manage to confirm the code is the same?
Yes,
Yes.
it is the same.
It's the same, okay. Has this been a fair distribution?
Yes.
But we don't know who is A and who is B.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The missing one.
Someone may have
10.
Oh, so 10. Facility 20 is A. Yes. Yeah. So 2, 4, 6, 8 is the 10.
9.
A is there. Kaketo, don't disappear.
Hold the sign.
Counting,
Take a picture.
We want to take a photo so that we know where, so that later on you don't accuse us that he declared a different chairperson when. So, are we together? Now we are going to the last stage, and I want you also to maybe volunteer by deciding who should choose that last poll, which is going to help us make a decision whether A is intervention or B is intervention. We say it, and maybe we need to bring it back. And we are going to have someone from NTRL. Maybe let's get that decision back, who is even and odd, a slide for even and odd, so that people may not accuse for having said all is this and even, so that we can see it. So
We are going, who's going to represent NTRL? The number of people from NTRL. Yes, thank you. Come and represent NTRL for
the final decision.
And you know NTRL will be helping us to monitor. And maybe I'm going to call back a joke to help shuffle this. Now this is the final decision. And then we can have a group photo to see. The judge is now here. Okay, we are there now, isn't it? Okay. Now, she's going to choose. You have seen, even Group A receives the intervention. Group B, which is the intervention. Then Group B, routine care, which is the control. So, the final decision is coming. You better pray because pray that she picks what. So the number is maybe the number is 4. You are going to decide? I see people saying So now, maybe the key question here is that we all feel that the decision is very fair.
Yes.
Yeah? No one has been cheated. We are going to stick to our arms. And then, for those who are now going to be in the control arm, we are no longer going to refer. We are going to continue referring to the gene expert hubs. Those people who are in the intervention are going to get a gene expert on the side. But we said that people will also get a gene expert at the end of the study. And so those ones will no longer refer. So probably we can come forward, all of us, and take a photo. This team come together showing this photo. Maybe at the end of it we shall all go down and take a group photo for all of us. But now also these ones. Hey, you join. This one should be this okay control. Let the control and the intervention so that okay. Yeah. So the cameraman, the camera women, but there is something in between there. We are all the same team. Okay? Light, light, I can switch it off. Oh, this light is dangerous. Okay, sorry. I can also play this since I was there. Since I was the what? The MC. Yeah. And we shall be coming up with a newsletter article. Bring out this photo and distributing it to the health facilities. Trying to bring out all this information, and we shall be distributing it in the near future for health facilities. So, and I think this brings us to the end, just to make a few remarks. And after here, we are going to go down and take a group photo. And then that group photo will culminate the end of this, and then we shall go for lunch. As far as, before we wrap up, and also, as far as logistics are concerned, I think you will see
on any of those logistics for people who travel from where and other things. They will be provided if they have not already been provided. But before probably we close completely, I'm going to ask Aditya to say a few words, and then we shall close.
So thank you all for participating. I know there's a lot of excitement to be assigned to the intervention arm. I hope that everybody feels the process was fair. And again, I want to reiterate that everybody will benefit from the next device. A couple things to ask everybody. One is that
silence for 2 minutes. Ask for 2 minutes. Take your seats.
we have an evaluation form just to understand your interest and your assessment of this ceremony. So Annette over here will pass out the evaluation forms. Please fill them out before you go down for lunch and hand them back at the desk. Okay, it's very important for us to plan these things for the future to understand what your assessment was. Second, we have two colleagues from UCSF at the back of the room who are here for a different project related to TB treatment. And so during lunch, they may be coming to some of you to ask you some questions and talk with you, just to understand a little bit more about how TB treatment is delivered in your facility. So please, if they approach you, I hope you're willing to share some of your knowledge with them, so we can also kind of work on one of our other projects related to improving TB treatment. So thanks again for your participation, and I'll let Achilles wrap up.
Once again, I'd like to thank you so much for coming. And as the program manager said, I participate in many workshops and many meetings, both at district, ministry level. However, we are very punctual that you managed us to make this occasion complete earlier than probably anticipated, which is very good. Some of you may have to travel back today or tomorrow, depending, but we are so grateful for that. Thank you so much. And we'd like to convey this message back to your health facilities. We shall continue to work with you. And as I said, we are going to be summarizing this activity that we have gone through in a newsletter article which will be distributed to all health facilities. And we shall also regularly, at either quarterly basis, be providing some update on what is going on. We hope that we shall adhere to our standards, and by the end of it, as we said, each site will get a gene expert. But for now, we need to stick to the control and intervention site. I also thank the facilitators. Many of these people have traveled from far to come and work with us and try to help improve TB control in the country. The program manager, as she said, she's very much with us, and also NPRL is very much with us, and we look forward to implementing this and probably inform the program. The aim is that at the end of it, if this works, why not for all health facilities at level 3 in the country? We shall use this evidence to advocate for putting this in a global fund application and being able to procure and purchase gene expert at all levels at health center 3. As you know, one of the goals of the NTP strategy is to have a chance that we do DST for every patient who comes in, whether new or old. By having molecular testing at those levels, using this evidence to advocate for that, will help us achieve such goals in the end. With those few remarks, I would like to thank you very much and declare this workshop closed. So we go down